Good morning. Happy Monday. It's March 5th, 2012, and I'm Muadi here with another episode of Live by Design. I am so excited to be back with you. It's been a couple of weeks since we've been together. I've been a little busy. I had a wonderful Women's Worth workshop last month in Boston, where I'm taping from today. It was really exciting. And if any of my Women's Worth women are watching, I want to thank you again for a wonderful afternoon. The insights, the breakthroughs, the sharing was very powerful. And I'm hoping that you are using some of the tools and some of the information that you gained at the workshop to help you in your everyday life, because that's what it's really about. We can all go to workshops. I go to workshops. I have a couple that I'm excited about going to later on in the year. But if we don't take the time to apply what we've learned to our life, then it was really a waste of time, to be quite frank. So hopefully you're taking the time every day to do your journaling, to do your meditation. Hopefully you have found some books and some tools outside of what was offered to you at the actual workshop that's helping you along in your journey. So continue, please continue to email me and text me and call me, Facebook me to let me know how things are going for you. In addition to the Women's Worth workshop, I also had the pleasure of working with two new groups over the last couple of months. First, I worked with a transportation coalition called On the Move, based in Boston. It was really exciting. They had a one-day retreat, and I had the great privilege of being able to share that space with them and facilitate their meeting. It was interesting and fun and exciting, so much so that the lights actually went off during the show. Like the power just went out. We're sitting steadily working, and all of a sudden I look up and we have no lights. But this crew is serious. They were so committed to what they were doing that rather than fold up shop, right, and go home, we only had about maybe 20 minutes left into the day. Folks started pulling out their cell phones and working by the flashlight of the phone. So it was really, really exciting. And then earlier this month, was it last month? I think it was last month, I got to go to Harvard College and spend Sunday evening with some scholars from the Phillips Brooks House Association. And it's a group of young people, Harvard students, who are committed to doing community service work. And so we had a very interesting conversation about service, justice work, and how you can maintain balance, how you can maintain your own personal purpose while working on behalf of others. It was very, very interesting. And I'm hoping that they too are following some of the suggestions that I made, that I offered them as to how they can make their walk in the justice world a little bit more sane and a little bit more loving for themselves, having a little bit more compassion for themselves, and recognizing that those of us who've committed to doing public service work, teaching, social justice work, that ideal picture of the world that we are trying to create for others also includes us. And so in the process of being out and being of service and working for other people, we have to be very intentional about making sure that we don't get lost in the sauce. And what was interesting about that particular workshop is that the young people, particularly the young women, they reminded me of myself when I first got into this work of doing public service work. There were a lot of guilt, a lot of obligation, a lot of feeling torn between the loyalty to family, a loyalty to community, and loyalty to self. Several of them were first-generation immigrants, a couple of them from Nigeria. So as a first-generation Congolese American, I was born here, I can understand the tensions and some of the frustrations and fears that they had. So it was really good for me to be able to bring my personal experiences and my professional experiences and offer them to them as learning opportunities and cautionary tales of what to do and what not to do to maintain your sanity. So that was really, really exciting. Now, before we get into today's topic, I do want to share two pieces of information with you. I'm a big believer in sort of sharing the wealth. And a few weeks back, a friend of mine who also works in the nonprofit sector, recommended two titles to me that he believed would help me sort of shift my paradigm of thinking relative to the nonprofit organizations that I work with. I've always been worried. There's a trend going on now in the nonprofit sector where business practices are being adopted and adapted by nonprofit organizations in an attempt to make us more efficient and more sustainable over the long run. And that never quite really felt good to me in my spirit. I mean, yes, of course, there are always opportunities for us to become more efficient and to become more diligent and intentional about certain business practices, whether it's marketing, strategic planning, etc. There's something about the private sector culture that, to me, is just not a good fit, and I never could really articulate that. So he recommended a book to me that I am going to recommend to anybody who's watching that is interested in up-leveling their nonprofit organization, but in a way that allows them to transition from being what's called a good organization, an average organization, to a great organization. So I actually have two titles. So the first one is what was actually recommended to me. I hope you can see that. I'm going to hold it up there. Hopefully you can see it. And this book is called Good to Great and the Social Sectors. And it's actually a companion piece to the main book. Again, I'm going to hold it up. Hopefully you see it. And this is called Good to Great. I'm going to hold it so you can see. Hopefully you can. Both of which are written by a gentleman by the name of Jim Collins. And I'm already halfway through this book, and I just got it a few weeks, maybe a week ago. And I'm a very busy person. I don't get to read as often as I like. But it's a very quick and easy read, but it's really, really, really good. It really does a real comparison between good companies and great companies over the last, 75 to 100 years or so. And I really, really recommend it. I've gotten some really good information out of it. And hopefully, I think you will too if you work in the nonprofit sector. And if you decide to get the book, I really encourage you to please call me or Facebook me, Muadi Debinga, at Facebook, and let me know what you think, okay? And finally, my last recommendation before we take a little bit of a break is I really, really hope that those of you who have cable have been watching the OWN network. In particular, there are 3 shows that I would strongly recommend. One is Super Soul Sunday. It comes on every Sunday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And on Super Soul Sunday, on the network, you will find some of today's greatest, most notable thinkers and spiritual teachers talking about the issues that are of importance to us here in this program. Authenticity, spirituality, living from awakened consciousness. They've had Debbie Ford and Wayne Dyer, Gary Zukav. I mean, anybody that you can think of who's considered to be a contemporary in this work has been on this program, and some more are scheduled to come. Deepak Chopra is doing an episode pretty soon as well. I find this show to be so powerful that I really try to rearrange my Sunday schedule so that I can be part of it. We talk about in my workshops, I'm always sharing with my workshop participants that in order for us to really get rooted in this work, in order for us to really get rooted in these new practices that we are trying to adopt and really have a shift in our lives, we have to have consistent practice. We have to have consistent conversation and consistent reminders that keep us on course, particularly so that we do not get sort of distracted by what we see going on outside of us. So I really recommend Super Soul Sunday. I really strongly also recommend Oprah's Next Chapter and Masterclass. Those are 2 shows where she speaks to the thinkers of today, the celebrities of today, the spiritual teachers of today, and really follows and hears them and hears their backstory. And I know that we have a tendency sometimes to connect through pain with other people. I don't know why that is, but that just seems to be the case. And it's interesting because she brings on very noteworthy people, and in a very intentional and conscious way, she creates a space for them to share their story so that we can see the connections between maybe what they've been through or maybe what they're going through and what we've gone through, and use their lives as an inspiration, and sometimes use their lives as a cautionary tale as we sort of figure out our walk in this journey. So I really strongly recommend that. Okay, we're going to take a little break, and we're going to come back, and I am going to introduce to you the topic for today. Be right back. We're back. So today we are going to be continuing our conversation about authenticity, but you're in for a real treat. I had the opportunity to introduce a woman by the name of Rita Spinola. Those of you who know me or have been at any of my workshops, you've heard this name before. Rita Spinola is a friend of mine. We have been friends for almost a little over 20 years. And she is the person who I credit with being my first spiritual pointer. We've known each other forever. We grew up, we worked together in Boston. And at some point, we both were living in New York. And we were in touch at a time when I was at the peak of my internal struggle. My ego was raging. Wasn't feeling good about life in general. I was doing a good job of faking it, and I was having a lot of good positive experiences, but they weren't from that real authentic soul place that I live from now. And Rita Spinola is the person who pointed me in the direction of this way of thinking, this new way of living. She and a friend of hers and myself, we had gone to a book fair in New York, and we had been talking about what I was going through, and she was really trying to encourage some titles. I happened to pick up this book about change or transformation or something. She grabbed it out of my hand, and she was like, "No, if you want to read a book, you need to read about this. This is a book to read." So she picks up a book written by Iyanla Vanzant and gave it to me. I read most of it. It didn't really speak to me, but it did set off something in my mind. It did click in me, this whole way of thinking differently about your life. So while Iyanla Vanzant's writing at that time didn't really do it for me, I did go on a quest to find the books that would. And so I really want to thank her, hopefully she's watching, for putting me on that path. And over the years, over the last 15 years or so, we have really got into this place where we're sort of a soul friendship, where we are on the same path. We don't have the same background. We don't have the same experiences growing up. Rita grew up in a neighborhood in Boston near a place called Blue Hill Avenue. And she had a really tough childhood. I'm not going to share her personal story because that's hers to share at a time where she feels appropriate. But I will say this. She has experienced some things that I would not wish on my worst enemy. And for her to be able to emerge from that with the grace and the dignity and just the spirit and the excitement and joy of life that she has is an amazing testament to the fact that we can choose. We can choose how to use our past experiences. We can choose our path. What's happened to us does not have to define us. It does not have to destroy us. No matter how bad, no matter how terrible your past was, you can still find grace, and you can still find redemption, and you can still find joy. And that's what this interview is about. Now, I'm going to warn you, when Rita and I get together, these conversations last forever. We can be on the phone at times 5 hours at a stretch. And so the day that we had this interview, we met for breakfast at 9, didn't finish breakfast till 12, and planned a 30-minute conversation that ran a couple of hours. So what I'm giving you now are the highlights, the best tips, the best insights from my dear friend, Rita Spinola. If you're in Boston, you might see her on the bus. You might see her at work. She's not a celebrity. She's not a star. She's not famous. She is someone like you, someone like me, who's doing her best to be the best in the time that she has on this earth. And I think that she has a lot that we can learn from. So I hope you enjoy this. I hope that you find it informative, insightful, and inspiring, because that is my intention in bringing to you now Miss Rita Spinola. Viewpoint on the whole subject. So first I want to ask you, when you think about authenticity, particularly as it relates to your life, how do you define it? How would you, if someone asked you to explain it to them, how would you explain that for you? What would be your definition of it?
Being yourself. That would be it. Just being yourself.
But why is
whatever that self is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Why do you think it's so hard?
Because we don't know who we are.
Okay, what do you mean by that? When you say we don't know who we are. If somebody's listening, they're like, I know who I am.
I think most of us are mysteries to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I think that somebody else, parents, caregivers, environment, define you, raise you, help you make sense of who you are emotionally, spiritually, and not all of it really is who you are, what you've come to the world with. So I think we're mysteries to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And if in fact that's what you want to do, is to find out who you are, then you go on that mission. And that's how you sort of do it. You go on that mission of discovering who you are. What really do you like? What don't you like? I was very shy growing up, and I was made aware of it But that was really who I am. So when I come out of myself, that is really because of other people telling me how that wasn't really a good thing to be.
Being shy?
Yeah.
I can't see you as being shy. Really?
Yeah, very much so. I still am.
And I'm sure people tell you all the time you don't come across as a shy person
because
at all.
Being shy and being an introvert is not... No, think of all the workshops that try to get people out of that. Like it's a bad thing, it's not a good thing. And I get most of my accolades from being something that I'm not. So why would I want to move in that direction?
So do you think, and if so, how do you think that being, not forced, but being encouraged, let's say, to be something other than who you feel yourself intuitively to be, how do you think that that's impacted you in your life, in the workplace, for example, or just in general?
Well, it makes me incongruent. It doesn't align me with myself, and it doesn't align me with my path, because it doesn't match up. It all doesn't match up. Who I am doesn't match up with now these careers or these professions or these friends that I'm going towards. They don't match up.
Okay.
So that there's an unbalance. There's an unsettled. You feel unsettled. It doesn't feel like home. It feels strange. And it's not me.
Is that something that you're like consciously aware of it? Is it more of a feeling, a combination of both?
I've always been aware of it.
Really?
Yeah. Wow. I've always been aware of it. I know when I'm the me that I know, because I don't know all of me. I'm still a mystery in some ways. I meet myself all the time, you know. And it's like, wow, hey, how you doing?
But do you think that's a bad thing?
No.
Really?
What I think is bad is when you think it's bad. And I think it becomes detrimental when you are not accepting of it, or when you think you know yourself.
Okay.
And then you see yourself and you decide that you're not going to welcome it and figure it out. I think then it becomes detrimental. And then it becomes, if we want to say bad or negative, I think it does then. And it has for me in some ways. I've discovered pieces of myself that I have not liked. You know, but I've decided that I cannot like that and accept that and figure it out, as opposed to like try to shove it somewhere,
right?
Because it doesn't go anywhere.
Right.
It shows up somewhere worse.
Right. and people can, and other people can actually see it when we think that we're hiding.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're a very good mirror for me, and things that I've always thought that I was really good at sort of covering.
Yeah.
And then when you'll tell me something or make an observation, I'll be like, oh, how did you see that? It's like, ugh.
Well, when I started realizing how good I was at seeing people, you know, because that I think is one of my strengths, and I think it is because of being very quiet for a very long time in my life that I'm a really good observer, and I learned that very early on. That I can do that very well, and then one day it just dawned on me: so can other people. Like,
well, they can see you lying, right?
It's a two-way mirror. I thought it was just me. I was like, and I lay back and I said, oh, but okay, really, you're not special. They can see you too. Like, wow. And that really was just like profound. And it still is to me. When I begin to get on my whole thing, because I see people I take a deep breath because I realize, but they see you
But they see you too.
They see you too. And so, okay, it's okay. It levels me out, because I used to fly high on that for a while.
Really?
Yeah, because I could see people you know, and I used to, and never really realizing that. Guess what?
See you
Your slip is showing. I think that I begun to take an interest in things other than what I could see or touch was very early, because things didn't match up for me.
Like what?
What people said and what they did didn't match up. You know, what I was doing and what I was feeling didn't match up. Just didn't. You know, and then things that I would hear would resonate with me. Like, this might sound very strange, but I remember being very young, like about 8, and I heard this concept. Freud had said that most things begin with yourself. And that stuck with me forever.
Really?
I was like 8 years old, yeah. And I remember that. And it was that. So for me, I don't know how I interpreted it then, but I know over the years I always came back to that. So I always looked at myself, because I believed it when I was 8, and it said, I don't, you know, and I don't study Freud, because he's not the person that I study when I look at theory. I'm more a young person. I'm more over there. But that most things start with self. that stuck with me. And I started to believe that because I started to see that people thought out of their perspective, they acted out of their perspective, they made choices out of their perspective, they changed because, and I started seeing that about myself, that it's me. It's not any of this. And when I changed that, like I started getting that really young. Just even when I'd be in the midst of the most stupidest thing, I knew it. Even now. Not just then, because I still do it now. Even when I'm doing the most ridiculous of things with the most ridiculous of people, I still know when it starts here. So I was never a big blamer of people. You know, it didn't make sense to me anymore. At that point, at 8, it didn't make sense to me to stop. Well, this is what's weird because I did a lot of fantasy reading because so Shakespeare does that for me. I love
really
absolutely at every turn of the moment, and yes, at every yes. So you have to know it to know it. You have to know his word. You'd have to know that Elizabethan word and how the story ends and the irony and the contrast to get it. You know, because I can't explain it better than that. Or the Twilight Zone, something like that.
Now you know I'm a big sci-fi fan, so I'm down with the Twilight Zone. So how does that tie in?
It all sort of came back to whoever that main character was, whatever plots and twists and things that were in the mix. It always came back to that main character and how that main character was raised and what that main character decided, choices that main character decided to make, and then that main character at the end of these stories had to live with that. It didn't then blame the family. You know, they always had to sort of live with that, however tragic, however funny, however, they always sort of had to do it. So then there were some characters who would get it early on and sort of switch things, and then their outcome would change, and there were some that didn't. Hence the comedy or the tragedy.
Oh, that's interesting.
So I didn't go to spiritual books, and, you know, I didn't. I went to fantasy and literature, and I went to, that's what sort of kind of kept it going for me. It was sort of allegorical for me, like for a very long time, until that didn't work anymore. And then you know, like they say, either you get butterflies and grow wings, or you die, or whatever. So then it moved into, now I need some real practical ways of looking at this thing that I'm you know, needing to do.
And I know you have a few.
No, there really is not. I mean,
it's for each
and
person.
what I know, because I am spiritual, when you want to know, the information will show up. That's what I know. Well, I could tell you a whole lot of stuff. When you want to know, the information will show up because that's how it works. I think that's how the universe works.
Right.
That's how the divine is.
Right.
When you decide that it's not matching up, I've got all this and I'm unhappy, or I don't have anything and I don't know, or I'm hanging around people and I'm not really feeling you start saying, I want more, I want differently, it did for you.
Yeah,
it did for me.
Absolutely.
It will.
Absolutely.
It will show up.
Absolutely.
And then when it does, if in fact it is what you want, you will. Because things have shown up for me that I haven't availed myself of because I wasn't quite ready to do it. I can think of things. And you know, I'm not a big regret person. I don't even know what that is. Like, and I don't even, people, I regret not, I just don't. I don't know. I'm where I'm supposed to be, right, at all times. So I'm fine with that. And in terms of, like, I do, you know, thank my mother for introducing me to God and my family. And because without that, to not have that and then have to go on this,
that's a hard road, that's a hard way to go. It's a hard.
Me and my mother can relate in a big way. My sister doesn't. She believes in that dogma, that Lutheran dogma, or whatever. I don't know which one it is right now, whichever one it is. And so they've linked it in that way. But me and my mother can talk in a big way about spirit. And and if you go in her room and you start looking around, you see some other things going on. But she's so for it's very difficult. And when they tell, we prayed for this one, or when anything happens, you know, they'll take the credit for the prayer of it. Or even with me, if something happens for me, we prayed for you. Well, I prayed too. And thank you, but You know, okay,
Right.
and I do, and what I have to try not to do is to call their faith into question.
Right.
And
right.
to make them feel a certain way about where they're at in their faith, and that's hard for me because I can get on a high horse with some things, and I can question. And when I believe in something, I do the work necessary to be able to talk you down to a ground, and I'm better at that than most of the people in my family. So I have to not do that because it's God after all.
Right, and I think that's the challenge. Even on this.
Part of me that like shows up is like, I want recognition. Do you?
I don't know.
I know you're not being interviewed, but
that's okay. We can ask.
I do. Like, and I realize that.
When you say what kind of
acknowledge
recognition?
that I'm like,
that you're different, that you change.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, dang it, people.
No,
it's easy.
Yeah.
Walk down the street and blow a laugh.
Yeah.
You know, and then it's like me to cut it out. But I do sometimes, like, and it doesn't like it never happens.
I think I do too.
When you said it to me, I was like, that's great. Like, I was like, good. You know, like, some affirmation. Do I want, you know, a one page in the banner? No, but just like, yeah, and it would be nice, like, for someone in the family to say, hey, thanks, because what I know is they're getting benefited from it. I watch them do it. Nobody says it, and that bothers me about my family system and other family systems. Yeah. So I asked myself, what is it that I benefit from them by being there that I'm not saying out loud? And I want to say out loud to my family, like, thank you, because you're doing, and it come on, it's not a one way, right? We doing it. So, and I realized I'm getting something too.
That's interesting.
And I'm not saying it out loud. Like, hey, Mom, thanks for, you know, because of you, you know, doing this. That's why I do that. It's because I had to say that to myself. You don't do it, Rita, but you want them to every Sunday morning to smack you in the back.
Right.
But you don't say to them, like to my mother, thanks for introducing me to God, because if you hadn't,
I'd be crazy right about now.
Oh, I'd be
under a bridge somewhere.
Yeah, I'd be, you know. I don't talk about it. You know me.
That's true.
I don't.
That's true.
So
Well, that's why I'm so grateful she's on camera. She never talks to anybody.
Big time, my was gonna say, really? She was on the. No, because I don't.
Why? Why don't you?
I don't know why I would. I don't even know when I would bring it up. Like, at what point would this come up? What I do is if I'm sought out, this is what you get, right?
And that's what you're gonna get. I thought that was such an appropriate way to end this interview with Spinola, as I affectionately call her. In actuality, the interview didn't even really end there. As I said, it was supposed to be 30 minutes. We ended up talking for several hours later. But I thought that was an appropriate place to stop, because what you see with Rita is exactly what you get. She's not perfect. She's not striving to be perfect. She's striving to accept herself, and has accepted herself, warts, faults, shortcomings, and all. She loves herself and is committed to doing what's necessary to continue on that path and continue on that journey. And that's what life is all about. We humans, we have a tendency to shrink to fit, right? If something is not going right for us, or we lose a job, we lose a relationship, somebody criticizes us, somebody's unkind to us, we oftentimes shrink ourselves to fit those circumstances. We allow fear, we allow being self-conscious, we allow our lack of self-esteem and lack of confidence to make us small, to let us shrink, to keep us in this small space, so as not to shake up the status quo, or risk being made a fool of, or risk making a mistake. And I want to encourage all of you to not allow the circumstances of your life, no matter how bad, no matter how treacherous, do not allow them to confine you and keep you small. Rita made a very critical choice, and you heard in the interview back when she was 8 years old, she really started to understand the role that personal accountability, it's starting with self, personal accountability plays in our being able to break out of our circumstances and actually come up higher. Just like Rita, I'm grateful for everything that I've gone through in my life, the good, the bad, and the ugly, because that brought me to where I am today. My intention for bringing you this interview was to remind all of you, and remind myself, that every day, any given day, we have a choice to make. We can either show up in this world fully present, accepting ourselves, and doing the best that we can do to rise above the challenges of life and to use our challenges, use our past to inform our future. Or we can allow ourselves to be shackled by our problems. We can allow ourselves to be shackled by these challenges. We can allow ourselves to become so wrapped up in fear and self-doubt and worry that we're afraid to take even the smallest step towards our own redemption. The same grace, the same divinity, the same love that allowed Rita to transcend and come up even higher from her past circumstances is available to you. It lies within you. It's your choice as to whether or not you are going to access it. My hope, my prayer for you is that you do what is necessary to access the grace, access the strength, access the courage that lies within you, and harness that power in you so that you can rise up and answer your soul's calling. Thank you so much for joining me. If you have any questions, if you have any thoughts, if you have any suggestions, please feel free to Facebook me at Muadi Dibinga. You can also follow me on Twitter, mdibinga. And hopefully you will have an insight from this that makes life a little easier and makes life a little bit better for you. Okay? I will see you soon. Enjoy your week. Enjoy your life. Do your best to bring the best of who you are to everything that you do. Bye-bye.